Welcome to the Global War Watch Network. Australia's decade-long capability gap is forcing us to ask a really tough question. Can its aging submarine hulls actually deter regional expansionism before their nuclear replacements arrive? Today, we're looking at how shifting delivery timelines are destabilizing the AUKUS pact and forcing some pretty rapid industrial pivots. This whole situation, this strategic vacuum, is redefining what maritime dominance even means, and it's putting Western alliances to the test. Can they outpace the accelerating naval modernization we're seeing across the Pacific? Hey, before we jump in, if this is the kind of analysis you're looking for, do us a favor and hit that subscribe button. It really helps us keep you informed. All right, to really get what's at stake here, we have to start by looking at the numbers. And more importantly, the industrial momentum that is completely changing the game beneath the waves. So let's just take a snapshot of today. If you look at it on paper, the U.S. Navy has what looks like a massive lead, right? About 65 active nuclear-powered submarines to China's 12. And these are incredibly advanced, quiet, capable machines. But that number, as big as it is, it really doesn't tell the whole story about where things are headed. Because this is where you see the critical shift. It's all about momentum. Yeah, the U.S. has a larger legacy fleet, but China's shipyards are now just flat out building these things faster. Between 2021 and 2025, China is on track to have launched 10 new nuclear subs, while the U.S. launched 7. This isn't just about playing catch-up. It's about building an incredible industrial base that can keep this pace up for years to come. So, in response to this shift, the West has made a huge bet. It's called AUKUS. And it's this incredibly ambitious, multi-generational plan to get Australia nuclear-powered submarines, and in the process, build a whole new industrial cornerstone for the alliance right there in the Pacific. This optimal pathway, as they call it, is designed to roll out in phases. First, you get Allied subs visiting Australia more often. Then, and this is key, Australia buys several used American Virginia-class boats in the early 2030s. That's meant to be a bridge until the brand-new, jointly designed SSN AUKUS class arrives, first from the UK, and then way out in the 2040s, actually built in Australia itself. Okay, so the plan sounds solid, right? A logical progression. Well, this is where the strategic ambition runs headfirst into a very hard wall. The industrial capacity of the West is strained, to put it mildly. The will is there, but the ability to actually build this stuff is stretched to its absolute limit. See, for AUKUS to even work without gutting its own fleet, the U.S. needs its shipyards to be churning out 2.33 Virginia-class submarines every single year. That specific number lets them replace their own aging boats and have a couple of extra to sell to Australia. It's a very tight calculation. But here's the reality check. The current U.S. production rate, it's hovering around 1.2 boats a year. That's not even close. It's a massive gap between the goal and what's actually happening. And it's all because of things like workforce shortages and fragile supply chains. This one number puts the entire AUKUS timeline at risk. And this isn't just a U.S. problem. The UK, which is supposed to design and build the very first of these new SSN AUKUS boats, has its own serious bottlenecks. Their number one absolute top priority is building their new Dreadnought-class ballistic missile subs. That's their nuclear deterrent. The program to build the new reactor cores for those boats has been officially rated red, which basically means it's seen as unachievable without some kind of miracle. That puts the whole AUKUS sub-project in jeopardy. So with all these industrial delays in America and Britain, who's left holding the bag? Well, the consequences fall squarely on Australia. It creates this incredibly dangerous waiting period, what they call a capability gap, where their old submarines are getting rickety right when the neighborhood is getting more dangerous. Which brings us to the central, maybe billion-dollar question for Australia's defense planners. Their current fleet of 6 Collins-class diesel-electric submarines is already getting old. So what on earth do you do when your old subs are about to retire, but the new ones are nowhere in sight? Well, the answer is a massive gamble called LOTE. That stands for Life of Type Extension. It's this incredibly complicated engineering project where they pull each of the 6 Collins subs out of the water for a 2-year overhaul, just hoping to squeeze another decade of service life out of them. The goal is to push their retirement back into the late 2030s. But calling this a high-risk bridge might be an understatement. The program is already facing huge problems. Engineers have found what they call unprecedented corrosion on the old hulls. The costs are just ballooning, already in the billions. And maybe worst of all, it's competing for the exact same skilled workers that Australia desperately needs to be training for its future nuclear submarine workforce. It's a real dilemma. So faced with this looming gap, Australia is doing something pretty smart. It's making a strategic pivot. It's fast-tracking a completely different kind of undersea technology, large, autonomous drones, as a hedge against all these submarine delays. It's a new way to think about deterrence. And this really shows you a fundamental shift in philosophy. A traditional submarine is what you'd call an exquisite asset. It's incredibly expensive, it has a human crew, so you just can't afford to lose it. But an unmanned drone like the Ghost Shark, it's attritable. It's designed to be cheap enough that you can build a lot of them, and you can send them on what they call the dull, dirty, and dangerous missions where you'd never risk a crewed sub. And that is the core of this new strategy. Let's be clear, Ghost Sharks are not a replacement for nuclear submarines, not even close. They're a complementary capability. They're meant to bridge the gap. The idea is that by flooding a potential conflict zone with dozens of these autonomous systems, Australia can seriously complicate an adversary's plans and just manage risk during that really vulnerable window in the 2030s. So when you pull all these threads together, what you're seeing is a whole new strategic reality taking shape. The competition in the Indo-Pacific isn't just about whose tech is the best anymore. It's about who can build, who can sustain, and who can innovate their forces the fastest. And that brings us right back full circle to the question we started with. The AUKUS plan is a very long-term bet, but the industrial challenges are happening right now. The real test for the Western Alliance is whether it can get its industrial base back in gear fast enough to keep pace. So if there's one thing to take away from all this, it's this. We are absolutely entering an era of what you could call industrial deterrence. In this new power game, the race to build, to repair, and to scale up your naval forces might just be more decisive than any single battle. The factory floor has become the new front line. Thank you for joining us for this explainer. If you found this breakdown helpful, please do like, share, and subscribe to the Global War Watch Network. It really does help us continue to bring you this kind of analysis. And we really want to hear from you. What are your thoughts on this industrial race happening under the waves? Drop them in the comments below, and make sure to follow us on social media for more. All the links you need are in the description.